Hello, everyone, and welcome to Practice Power Hour. Maximize the ROI of your firm with a Best of Breed Tech Stack webinar. My name is Rachel Penn, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at SmartVault. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce your host and panelists today. We have Dawn Brolin, who is our main host and speaker for the session. Hello, Dawn. Thank you for joining us. Along with Dawn, you also have me, Rachel, from the SmartVault team, and my colleague, Lori. Additionally, we are very excited that Ian from Carbon and Ross from Intuit were able to join us as panelists as well. Hi, Ian. Hi, Ross. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So all four of us, along with Dawn, will be here to answer your questions about a best of breed tech stack and workflow for an accounting firm. We hope this will be a very rewarding and valuable hour for everyone attending the session. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Dawn. Dawn, feel free to take it away.
You got it, Rachel. Super excited, everybody, to bring you really, honestly, the absolute best in breed tech stack, something that I've been working on, for 24 years in this field. And I'm super excited about it. And obviously, for me, if you know me, if you've ever heard me speak before, I am somebody who gets super fired up. I am the CEO and founder of Team Brolin, Powerful Accounting out here in Windham, Connecticut. We've been working on our tech stack, most importantly, because we are really, there's three of us in this firm, and we're very, very dedicated to our clients. But most importantly, we're dedicated to each other and our families and our friends. So we work hard to make sure that we are as efficient as we possibly can be. And of course, profitable. I mean, we're all in this to make money. None of us are in this to break even. So I'm super excited to bring you this presentation today. Most importantly to us, what we care about is scaling, being profitable, and having a return on our investment. And our investment can be money, and our investment can be time. And really, those are the two things that we're looking to focus on. Okay. Now, what we're looking for here for you to think about is your firm. What are you using for tech stack? How integrated is it? How is the workflow? Okay. And I want to also thank Ian for coming on. Ian with Carbon, I'll tell you what, Ian, I've been working with Carbon for over 5 years now, and we just have it nailed down. Ross from Intuit, I'll tell you what, thank you, Intuit, for integrating Lacert with SmartVault. And SmartVault, thank you for integrating with DocuSign, because those three simple tools that we have, Carbon, SmartVault, and Lacert, have made my firm so profitable that I literally later today, I'm going to look to buy a boat. Not kidding, okay? For those of you in the audience, please make sure that you put your questions in the question area, because as I go through, if I'm not making myself clear, I certainly will answer your questions. So make sure you're doing that. Today, I'm going to show you how to maximize the available connective devices, those apps that are out there for you. We're going to create the most integrated workflow possible for you today, okay? I've been working on my own practice, like I said, for over 24 years. And this past tax season, just through savings, never mind the revenue that I've been able to generate, but I've saved around $30,000 in cost because of the efficiencies that we've created, and hundreds of billable hours that I've been able to utilize. And I'll tell you what, I was able to coach a softball team, assistant coach a college softball team, and I didn't miss anything. I volunteered my time because I love the game, but I was also able to be an adjunct professor, which, by the way, helping the students of the future is one of my passions, as well as being a family girl, right? So I have a great family, daughter who graduated. I did not miss anything this past tax season. And I was also, like I said, able to generate a lot of revenue while I was in the office because I was so efficient. And really, it's not just about money, and you know that. The quality of life, like I said, I remember the days where I would work 12, 14 hours a day, work till midnight every single night. And that just doesn't happen anymore because we're so efficient. So we're going to just kind of get into the things that we're working on, right? So let me ask you a question, and I hope you're really thinking about your own firm. That's the whole point. This is about you today, not about me. Okay? Are you using all of the power in your tech stack? Okay? You have to think about utilizing a repeatable system, right? Because you want to scale your firm. A lot of people say, well, we don't want to hire more people. Well, you don't have to hire more people necessarily, but what you have to do is revisit the system that you're using now. So are you disconnected? What are the tools that you're using in order for you to be able to be as efficient as possible? Okay. The only way to be profitable is to squeeze every single dollar out of your tech stack. Okay. So you may have some of the things that I'm talking, obviously, if you're doing tax returns, you have a tax solution. You have a tax software, right? But what are you utilizing outside of just the tax software? Outside of your inbox, right? Which is one of the reasons I love Carbon, because it has the ability to have what we call a triage, because emails can be the death of you. If you don't have a system to manage those emails, I used to use Outlook and use like that inbox and have rules and all these other things where I had folders set up that I would direct important emails to. But were those emails organized in a way that when you went to a tax return, were you able to see everything you needed right within the workflow of your tax return? Carbon allows us to do that. And that's the type of power that we're talking about, right? So we want to maximize that return on investment. Like I said, last year, obviously with COVID, we had nothing else to do. Did we have anything else to do but work? I just put myself and I vested myself in my work. We brought on about 75 new tax returns in 2020. And so that was great, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, now with, I'll say the, COVID release of sorts, we now can actually operate as people. But we ended up saying to ourselves, if we didn't have this integrated system, if we did not have these efficiencies, we would never have been able to serve more clients. And now with, like I said, our lives are kind of opening up. Would we be able to honestly serve that many clients? And honestly, this tax season, we brought on even more clients. Hence the $30,000 profit increase, being able to generate $300,000 in revenue. We were able to do that because we had a system that worked flawlessly, honestly. So Slack workflow, I want to just say, Kim, you're a bookkeeping firm. I'll tell you something right now. We also serve clients for bookkeeping. And what we have here, you can even cut out the conversation of Lacert if you don't have a tax firm. So don't let that hang you up. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. That's kind of the key to what we're going to talk about today is any kind of an accounting firm that you run and you serve clients. What I'm going to show you today is going to serve those people in a way that you cannot imagine. Honestly, you can't imagine. Okay, as far as the Outlook and Carbon piece, Justin, I'll tell you what, I don't even open Outlook. The only reason I open Outlook is for my calendar. I don't use it for email for any other reason. I use Carbon 100% to manage everything that I'm doing. And I'll show you kind of how that looks in a little bit. So honestly, SmartVault put this visual together. It's the best visual I have seen when it comes to a tech stack. Because honestly, a tech stack can be so confusing. There's so many options out there. And I've researched them, honestly. Over 24 years, I've seen it all, I feel like. And what I also love is that everybody in this wheel, this wagon wheel of solutions, they're constantly improving and updating their systems. If you're using a tech stack, if you're using something in your tech stack that does not continuously increase their connectivity to other tech stacks, if they're not, utilizing and increasing their efficiencies, then you need to run away from them. Everyone in this wagon wheel is improving their tech stack on a constant basis. So for me, we start with Lacert because we're a tax firm. Obviously, we do bookkeeping as well, but we're a tax firm. We do taxes, we do tax resolution. So if you're somebody who handles IRS conflict, things like that, we use Lacert because it is absolutely the best for us. Obviously, Lacert, thank you, utilizes SmartVault. We're able to very quickly, and we'll see this in the demo, utilize SmartVault to go ahead and print our tax returns to SmartVault. I love that because our clients love it, right? So when my clients are happy, I'm happy. We also use Carbon, like I said, for that practice workflow management. I'll tell you something right now. When you see Carbon, and obviously we're not going to go through the whole entire solution, and I'll tell you, Ian used to work for Intuit. Ian gets it. Ian understands the pains with regards to an accounting firm, and he has proven in his solution with Carbon. SmartVault, working with DocuSign, absolutely phenomenal. Clicks of a button to be able to get 8879 signed. Also able to utilize things like that. DocuSign, secure, love it. Knowledge-based authentication that the IRS requires, right? Awesome. Yes, Pro Series will work as well, Henry, in this tech stack. Don't worry about the tax software because every single solution you see here will work with Pro Series, and you will see that as we go through this. Now, I know I kept T-sheets up there. I know it's Intuit. It's QuickBooks time tracking. You know what? I can't help it. T-sheets was always my baby. We kept that in there for fun. Utilizing T-sheets, we can do easy invoicing. ADP, I love ADP because it works with T-sheets. Obviously, QuickBooks time tracking. And QBO, listen, I've always been a desktop lover and I always will be, okay? But I use QBO because it works with everything in this wagon wheel here. Quotient was my big find. This was my big find in 2020. Quotient for quoting. So we're able to send out a quote and an engagement letter in one click of a button. And then we can obviously put that into SmartVault as we get that signed. And then Slack, again, we like to communicate internally. I tell my team, do not ever email me anything. Because we use Carbon, we're able to attach emails from each other. We're able to basically attach each other to an email. You'll see that. But Slack allows us just to quickly ask questions. It's great. Okay. And Jason, yes, I will answer your question about that as well. But this is your best of breed tech stack. If you do not have one of these pieces, you want to make sure you pay attention because this is how we generated $300,000 in 4 months. Again, going to buy a boat today. Okay, before we move on, we're going to go ahead and launch the next polling question. All right, let's do that. Launch it. Which of the following technology solutions do you currently have? And I didn't get specific about my wagon wheel, if you will, okay? But just wondering, those of you who maybe don't have certain things, I want to make sure I know that. Brian, I use Recur 360. Everything you see here is hosted right now. So we went to the NCAA regional tournament this weekend. Unfortunately, we lost in the final game for softball, NCAAs, but I brought my MacBook. I was able to log in, print a tax return to SmartVault for a client who needed a K1. For whatever reason, I didn't print the K1 for them. I was able to do that. And I love, 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 love Recur 360. I'll tell you why. Because if I email their support, I get an answer from within 5 minutes from them. And to me, when you're utilizing a hosting solution, I need support. I need to know that because as you guys all know, especially this last tax season, the updates to the tax software they happened like midday. So Recur 360 knows they got to take the updates every morning. But what would happen is we would get updates at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we need those updates in order to e-file sometimes. We can't e-file without the update coming through. So we would send an email out to Recur 360 and within 5 minutes, we had the update. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to hosting, you better make sure that you have somebody. It's called Recur 360, and I will send that out for you all right here. let me just put recur 360, and I'll send that out to everybody. Okay. So recur 360, that's what we use for our hosting solution. Okay. Now, all right, almost done. 90% voted. You're good. I'm going to go ahead. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're done. Okay. So it looks like, obviously, accounting, tax software, well, 95% uses that. That's fine. Document management, we have to have that. Practice management is critical, you guys. You have to have something that works for that. And e-signature, game changer, absolute game changer. Having e-signature, the IRS requires knowledge-based authentication, and DocuSign does that for us. I love it. Okay. I have tried, I feel like, every other system, and I'll tell you something right now. I have this figured out. Okay. All right. So next, we're moving on. Having a central document destination, honestly, you've got to have that for a streamlined tax workflow. You have to have a solution that your clients can work with as well. So we do not allow our clients to email us their documents. Does that work 100% of the time? No. But I have my girl, Tracy. Tracy communicates with absolutely every single client. That's her job. And she makes sure that absolutely every client can get into SmartVault, that they understand that if you forgot your password, which is probably the biggest question we get, we make sure that they have a person that they can contact and work with. But I'm telling you what, that document destination is critical. You've got to be able to make sure that everything that you're working with has a place to go. And that's why we use SmartVault. Okay, so with this workflow and the tech stack, you're going to have an absolute huge return on your investment. One of the biggest pain points, I would say, with you guys and with me is the time. The time that you're going to invest. The money, really, honestly, you can run your entire practice on tops $10,000 a year. Okay, $10,000 a year, obviously dependent upon your tax. You've got, maybe you have 20 preparers. You're going to have to spend more money on your tax software. Forget about that part. But I'm telling you right now, being able to invest money is not a problem for us, because if you have that workflow, you're going to make the money to pay for it. So take the cost out of your head. The key is the return on investment of time. Okay. We just ended tax season a week ago. That's why I thought this date today would be timely for all of us who just went through this process. Take an hour of your time today to go through this webinar, and take the time and invest the time in the various tech stacks. Obviously, Slack is a pretty easy thing to catch on to. That's not rocket science, okay? But take the time and understanding, okay, in Carbon and SmartVault, because where you're going to invest your time in is making sure that you set up your systems appropriately. That's where you're going to invest time. And I'm telling you, if you take 2 hours a week from now until the end of the year, take 2 hours a week of your time and invest it in making sure that this and I'm saying that's a lot of time, right? But take every single Monday morning. And that's what we did. We took every single Monday morning from 8 to 10, and we set up our day, and we said, okay, we're going to invest in this process, and we're going to take the time, okay? And we did that. And honestly, our three, right now we have honestly 4 people in our firm. 3 people are billable. I'm the main preparer. I have one other person who graduated a year ago that I took on into my practice, and he was a really quick learner. He does a great job. He's the only other person that does tax returns. He only does individual taxes. I've not brought him into the corporate world yet. He's not doing partnerships. He's not doing S Corps or C Corps. He's only doing individual returns. Then I have one other staff person who's billable. She does bookkeeping. She doesn't work more than 30 hours a week. She has a young child in her family, and she invests most of her time into her family. She works 30 hours a week. The other person, the other tax preparer, Kyle, has never worked more than 40 hours in a week. And so our firm is 3 people. And Tracy, she doesn't work more than 25 hours because she's semi-retired. She lives in Florida, living her best life. And she doesn't work more than 30 hours. I don't even think she worked 30 hours in 1 week this tax season. So that is the power. That's why I want you to understand that's the power and the return that you will get through this. And I'm not a salesperson, guys. I'm telling you right now, this is through life. This is what I've learned. This is what's happening. Okay. So we're going to work through some practice push-ups because that's why you're here. You're here to see the action. You're here to see it happen. So we're going to start with our first, what I call a practice push-up. Okay. This is where we're going to start. We're starting with the client makes a phone call or we get a referral from somebody. And Tracy, we start with her. We say, listen, we're going to start with a quote because you know what? People want to know what they're going to pay. And we have this nailed down. We're starting with quotient. So we send them a quote and the engagement letter because honestly, here's what you're going to pay. If you like it, you accept my quote and you accept the engagement. Now we're off and running. From there, we push that quote into QuickBooks. So it goes right into QBO. Guess what? We save time from dealing with creating invoices. I don't want to deal with administrative time. My whole goal is to never, ever have to spend 1 minute on administrative work. From there, we take that quote, we put it into SmartVault, and then from SmartVault, we send them what we call a client organizer that we've created. Because if you guys are sending out big client organizers, they're not happy about it, okay? They don't want to fill in all of those boxes, okay? So we've created our own. It's kind of a shortcut. And then from SmartVault, we send it through DocuSign. We use something called the connected desktop. It's beautiful. I'll tell you something. So Laura, I love your question about time. I was able to adjunct teach at the local university on Mondays and Wednesdays. I was also able to, starting end of January, I assistant coached a softball team. I left every single day for 3 hours, okay? Every day for 3 hours. So Mondays and Wednesdays, I taught for 3 hours. I also went to softball, and I also was able to work and get tax returns done. Yes, I worked on the weekends. I worked on Saturdays. Saturdays was the big day, but sometimes we had practice on Saturdays. So I probably put an average of 40 hours a week. No more, not a minute more than that, okay? And I want you to know that because that's the return you're gonna see. So let me show you a little bit of action. We're gonna go ahead and do the first part of our process. Tracy will put in my calendar, send a quote to this person, okay? And in my calendar, she'll put a link to SmartVault because she's already done all the work to get the prior year tax return. So I'm gonna go ahead and send Jackson Aaron, a tax return. Okay, so I take a look. I have open in SmartVault. Let's stay logged in just a second. Let's log back in here to SmartVault. So what'll happen is Tracy will send me a link she'll put a link in my calendar to the tax return folder. Okay, and she will put in here the prior year. So this is where that will show up. Okay, the prior year tax return. So I open up the tax return. We're cool, and I go ahead into quotient, and I have set quotient up the same as I have set up Lacert, okay? So in Lacert, I have all my forms set up with the pricing. So a 1040 is 250 bucks, okay? So we set this all up ahead of time. This is part of the time investment that I was talking about, okay? So I set up in quotient, as you can see, for a 1040. This is a standard tax return. So everybody gets, everybody's set up with a template, and you'll see my minimum tax return is $385. Obviously, if it's a state that doesn't have a state return, I simply delete that state. So if we have a non-taxable state like Florida or Washington or whatever, we just delete that. So the minimum cost of my tax returns is $285 if you don't have a state return, okay? So I go ahead and I say, okay, these are the forms, and you'll notice at the bottom here, here's my engagement letter. It's already all set up. I don't have to send anything separate. Everything's in here. And then I go ahead and I save and next, and I send this engagement letter to the client. Everything's cool. It previews. If I want to change this in any capacity, I can. I go ahead and send that quote to the client. All right, pretty simple, straightforward. Now the client will get this they'll get this quote from me, right? And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. You'll notice right here, this is what the client sees. okay, hello, everything's cool. They go ahead and they view the quote. Obviously, they see it and they agree to it. So I'm going to close this right here, because if I don't close it, they can't. Let's just go ahead and log out of this. We'll go to the dashboard. I'm going to log out real quick. Now, when I view that quote as the client, you'll see here it is. If I want, listen, people, charge for printing the return. I make that optional. If they want me to print the return, they're paying for it, $20, because I don't want to print a return. So they go ahead, they read the engagement letter, everything's cool. If they want to ask me a question, they can. I'm going to go ahead, accept this quote, done. Thank you, everything's cool. Then we go from there. If I go back into Quotient, which we'll go ahead and do here real quick, I'm not going to show you my security questions. That doesn't make sense. And all right, bring it back over here. And you'll notice, oops, not that one. We'll go ahead and refresh. And we'll see that Jackson has accepted the quote. From here, I go ahead and I hit literally create an invoice. That created an invoice in QBO. Very easy, simple, okay? So we created our invoice, and that's great. I also want to print this. I want to print this to SmartVault. So I go ahead, I should always have my SmartVault printer ready to go. I go ahead from here, and it's going to open up my inbox, which is also super cool. So hit my inbox from here, loads up. I go ahead, yep, I want it in this folder here, and I upload it. So now the engagement letter, okay, and the copy of the quote, accepted quote, is now in SmartVault. So you'll notice here, if I go into SmartVault, there it is right here, ready to go. Easy breezy. Okay, you see I'm just clicking buttons, obviously. Now, we go ahead, that's been accepted. So Tracy will say, okay, great, we're gonna go ahead and send the organizer. And this is what Tracy does. So she'll come in, she'll go to the client tax return, and she'll take this organizer. Now we bulk upload the organizer to all of our clients. So we have over 300 clients. We bulk upload at the beginning of the tax year, all ready to go. I simply hit get signature. Oh, I don't do it, Tracy does it. So she goes ahead, uploads that, okay? And what happens with DocuSign is it knows what I have here because I've set the template up in DocuSign. Again, this is some of the time investment. I go ahead and I hit apply. It applies the template. She goes ahead, sends it off to the client. Done. Now, what happens from here is Tracy will come in here, and once the quote's accepted, she creates the work for it. So now we're in Carbon. And again, this is all happening at clicks of a button, okay? Create the new work. What's great about Carbon, okay, is that we set up templates. I'll show you that real quick because I think Ian, I love this. This is so awesome. Here are all of our work templates. We set these up ahead of time, okay? They also give you some if you want them, but everything that we're doing, we set up a template so we don't miss a step. That's the key. This is how you handle your workflow. So we're going to go ahead and use this template here, but you notice we set up tasks, we assign them to certain people, who's doing what. You'll see at the top here, obviously the steps that we just took is that we sent a quote, we approve the quote, we have QBO updates. So when they give their payment authorization, things like that, we go ahead and put that into our workflow. This is all about the workflow. So if we go back to Jackson, we go to the work, we're going to create a new work for him. And in this example, we're doing a 1040. We're going to start it today and it's due tomorrow, whatever. She sets all this up. I go ahead and hit create. So now the work is created. Go into the tasks and she will edit this little task right here. She adds a description, and what she does is she puts a link to that client's vault, because I don't want to have to go find their vault. Like you just saw me go through SmartVault. I don't want to have to do that. What I want to be able to do, she says to me, okay, Brolin, this actual status is ready to start. We've got their documents. They've uploaded everything. We're ready to go. So what I do is I come in here and I say, okay, well, show me. What do I have to do at this point? I'm able to come into the vault from here and access my documents at a click of a button, okay? So that's why we set it up that way. So we say, okay, no problem. We emailed the quote was approved, everything's updated. And that's when Tracy says, okay, it's ready to start rolling. We're ready to go, okay? So that's the first practice push-up on how we work with the workflow here in this example, okay? So I'm gonna do from this current slide. That was pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and swap this guy here. As far as practice push-up number 1, okay? Now we start with the tax return. We're ready to go, make it all happen. I will tell you, Paul, that's a great question, right? How much time do we spend setting up all the templates? We went back and forth. We spent some time. I used to have my workflow, and I still have it today, in a Word document. So we knew with new employees coming in, they were able to look through that document to say, okay, how do we operate here at Powerful Accounting? Then we put this information into Carbon. We go ahead, we make sure that Lacert's updated. Every year, we increase our pricing. So we go into Lacert, we increase our pricing in our Lacert invoice setup. We also update our pricing in Quotient. So that's all set. We also make sure that we have additional forms that maybe we're seeing, new forms that we have to charge for. We update QBO as well, so that everything is in sync. And we spend probably, I would say, between 40 and 50 hours in December, making sure that everything is updated. The great thing about the way we operate is as we go through tax season, and you just went through it, and so I hope that you have a notebook out and that you're taking notes, because there are pain points that you've had through this past tax season. And so what we encourage people to do is to update them and go through the workflow, and we update them every year. And I have Tracy, I Slack her and I'm like, hey, make sure we add this field to our organizer. For instance, in March, we started to see that we started to be able to update, did they get their third stimulus check? Did they get that third stimulus check? Did they get the first? Did they get the second? So we had to update our organizers this year to include that, right? So we went through that workflow, and obviously, unfortunately, this year we had to make a lot of changes as, you know, we learned of new tax laws in the middle of this tax season, things like that. Unemployment, right? So we had to improve our process as we went through tax season this year, and that's the key. You guys are definitely going to go through that workflow, and you're going to go ahead and improve your workflow as you go, because things change on a dime, it seems like, in the last year as we go on. So now we're going to talk about the tax prep workflow, and here's where I love, we've got the client work creation, right? So I showed you how that works in Carbon. But what I love in Carbon is the task workflow. So the first thing we have to do, we have all the documents? And Tracy makes sure, she says to the client, hey, listen, are we good to go? They say yes. That's when she tells me it's ready to go. We go ahead and utilize that link in Carbon with SmartVault, and we can access those documents quickly. The client knows where to upload, and that's where we work that part out, okay? So the second practice push-up is to understand you've got to have a good workflow in your practice. So I want to look at Carbon again a little bit more. As you can see, we went through the initial we call it client onboarding, okay? And that's primarily what Tracy does. So in addition to that, what I love is what I call this timeline here, okay? So if I go into my triage, you're going to see that that quote was accepted right here for this guy. And I'm going to go ahead and add this to my work. And this is going to be for Aaron, Jackson Aaron right here. I'm going to go ahead and add this quote to his work. So if I go back to the work, you're going to see everything that happens with this guy is going to be in this timeline. This is why being able to manage your emails with Carbon versus Outlook, I don't want to have to go to another app, if you will, Outlook being an app. I don't want to have to go there. I want to live in Carbon, period. everything that I need to do needs to live within your practice workflow, because you don't want to have 8,000 things open at one time. Back to our tasks, you can see, okay, that we are able to start our tax document process. For me, I research property tax payments. We have, obviously shortcuts to get to that. We want to make sure that we look at the organizer. We open up the organizer so we can see what they've filled out, which is really cool, right? And then, so we go through this workflow and you see it's all assigned to me, but I may say, hey, wait a minute. I want to assign this to Kyle. I don't want to have to do that. So I assign that particular task to Kyle. Kyle's going to get an alert in his triage. Okay, so you see this triage over here to the left. That's where he gets an alert. I don't have to tell Kyle. I don't have to Slack Kyle. Kyle will get an alert that I've assigned him a task within this work. He's going to go ahead and look up the property taxes for Jackson for me. And he will then, when it's done, he can assign it back to me. So I know I don't have to talk to Kyle. Not that I don't want to talk to Kyle, just saying, but I want to make sure he sees that. So I'm going to go ahead into Lacert. I've already, obviously, we'll pretend Jackson works for me. Maybe he does some landscaping. I don't know. He doesn't do tax returns. So Jackson does some landscaping. I've already entered all that information for him. So I'm ready to print this return and get the 8879 sent out to Jackson because I'm done with the return. What I love is that, again, in the setup process, when I go to print the tax return, I've defaulted this to only print everything to SmartVault. Okay, SmartVault is connected to Lacert, right? So it's great. So I go ahead and I hit OK. All those returns are going to go ahead and be printed to SmartVault. I don't have to. I'm actually at this point, I'm probably grabbing a snack right now. I'm drinking a little bit of water while this prints. Okay, as you can see in the lower area here, you can see that it's processing, it's thinking about it, it's calculating, it's doing its thing, and it's printing to SmartVault. All done. Okay. You'll see in the lower right corner here, it's telling me it's complete. There's no issues, everything's cool, and it's updating SmartVault. Okay. Now, another key thing that happens here, there's a couple questions about the printing. If you have I want to call this out right now. If you don't use Lacert, maybe use Drake, maybe you use ProFX, maybe you use something else, you don't have to have the dialog box when it says here, okay? It doesn't have to be printing to SmartVault. You can print to a file. See how they have the file PDF? It can print to a file, and you can map that. When it goes to print to a file, you can choose SmartVault. So if I was to print here to a file, you'll notice that it comes, a dialog box is going to pop up. Here it is over here. Print to PDF. I can go ahead and save it into actual SmartVault from here. Okay, so it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have Lacert. I can go ahead and print to my inbox or whatever. I just want to show you that so you can see that it happens. All right, so it doesn't matter what tax software you use. It's going to go ahead and print 4 times because I chose it 4 times. We'll cancel that. Go ahead and close that box. Now, what I also love for the K1s, we do a lot of partnership returns. You can print the K1s directly to SmartVault as well. We have a client who has over 100 K1s. And without the ability to print those very easily, I would probably cry. So we go ahead and we print to SmartVault, okay? And again, easy breezy, simple for us to do that, okay? Again, simple, simple, simple. Everything being connected, it's critical, okay? Ian, I just want to thank you for Carbon because Carbon has changed my life, honestly. So practice push-up number 3, okay? Once I have everything all open, I print to SmartVault. They upload their documents, I prepare the return, everything's cool. Now I need to send them the 8879, okay? And we have to have knowledge-based authentication. And somebody asked me earlier about married filing joint tax returns. Now, obviously in this example, it's an individual, but I'll show you what it looks like and how you have to, how you can send this to 2 people. So we'll go ahead and show you what this looks like. All right, let me minimize my Lacert here and minimize my connected desktop. Okay, so we've got that all done. Opening up the connected desktop. So what I love here is that I'm going to go ahead. I've got the 8879 all printed. All I have to do is click on the 8879 and hit Get Signature. Once I do that, DocuSign will launch. Okay. And here's the 8879. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the recipients. And this, if I have my clients, which I typically do, their emails are already in here, so we don't have to worry about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and customize this particular document, and we're going to add identity verification. This is the KBA requirement by the IRS, knowledge-based authentication. If I had a married filing joint return, it would have 2 emails here. We'll just use Tracy, for instance. And again, the spouse would have to have identity verification as well. And I'll go ahead, add the signatures, the date they signed it, and then I would go ahead and switch to the other person, the spouse, date signed, and I would send it. Very simple. Now, what I love about this, what I love about that process is that when they sign it, it comes into my triage. It's going to come into my email. It's going to tell me they've signed it. Okay. And so what I love about that, again, is I can tag that DocuSign and it'll show up in my timeline. So everything that happens with this tax return lives within my, oh, got to do that tax return later, lives within my system. Okay. It lives within my work. And that's what I love about it. So the reason I don't use Lacert, and this is nothing against Intuit at all, I use this because when they sign that tax return, that 8879, I'm going to call it, it's magic, honestly, it automatically goes back into SmartVault. So the signed 8879, we don't have to download it and put it into their SmartVault folder. It automatically goes back. We never touch it again. And again, that sits in my SmartVault in my vault, and I don't have to print it out. I don't have to take it from Lacert and put it in there. And I love that, right? So, and Jason, your question's great. We demand our clients to have 2 email addresses. We have to have a separate email address for the primary taxpayer, and we have to have a separate email address for the spouse. And that's required because the IRS requires that knowledge-based authentication. I don't want the taxpayer signing a tax return for their spouse. Why? Because then I have nothing when it comes to an innocent spouse claim later. Okay, so I'm always forward thinking from that perspective. And we tell them the spouse has to have an email address, period. It's not, you know, honestly, if they don't have one, I tell them, go onto Gmail and make one. You know, get that spouse a Gmail account. It's not a big deal. Doesn't cost you anything, right? So Carbon, by the way, is integrating with Liscio. That's a whole nother ball game. As of yesterday, listen, this webinar is real time, okay? Real time. And so Carbon does work with Liscio now. I love your questions, by the way. You guys like make this so easy for me because you have awesome questions. And then practice push-up number 4. When we go through this process, once that 8879 comes through, okay, and again, it goes right back into SmartVault. I never touch that thing again. Nobody ever thinks about it. We get the alert in our triage. I go ahead into, first thing I do is I get paid, okay? And I told you when I pushed that invoice into QBO, that invoice is waiting for me to go in and receive payment, all right? Once I receive payment, because by the way, guys, sometimes I have somebody right now who I processed, we got the signature. I went in to process the payment this morning. Their credit card rejected. Guess what? I'm not filing that return until Tracy updates that credit card information. All right, get paid first. Then I go into Lacert, I e-file the return, and then from there, I go ahead and in Carbon, specifically, once that's all set, I change this, my status is waiting on e-file accept. Okay, so we're waiting. That's Tracy's clue to know that I filed the return. Again, she doesn't have to look to see if I filed the return because she looks at my notification and I assign it to her. So she now knows it's ready to go. Here's something awesome about Carbon. You see this little repeat here? Tracy, once the client comes in, we can set this work to repeat every year. So once we set a client up one time, we set it up as repeating work. It repeats automatically. We don't have to do anything additional. This work will show up January 1st. We never have to touch it again. It automatically sets up. It automatically goes into Tracy's workflow to get started for the next year. Okay, very awesome. We also, by the way, we know exactly the budget when it comes. We can add a budget estimate. Tracy does this. She goes in and she puts in a budget. So we know based on that day or that work how much money we're waiting on. And it matches Quotient because Quotient tracks that as well. Carbon also tells us the details and other things like that. It's absolutely, you have to use Carbon. I'm sorry, but you just have to. The workflow that I just showed you, and yes, it was kind of a quick workflow. I'll tell you what, this workflow works. And I'm telling you, we're actually working on some additional webinars and actually things that are recorded that you can go in and learn more details, because obviously we only have an hour to go through this webinar, but we have follow-up for you. And honestly, the ability to have this workflow and save this money is just crazy, you guys. I'm just telling you. Again, this administrative work is minimized. 7 years ago, I can tell you the story. I hired Tracy, and I hired Tracy because I was tracking my time with T-Sheets. And I saw that I was doing over 500 hours of administrative time. And I did the math to hire her so that I could actually do billable work. It was the best hire I ever did. Finding an administrative person that can help set this up and run it and make it be a workflow that just it's priceless, honestly. Administrative time is gone. We saved 135 hours through this workflow in 4 months. We saved 30 grand. I did the math, you guys, and I was super conservative on the time savings. This is real money, okay? We can, and honestly, guys, this is a consistent workflow, okay? This is something we work on. We're still working on it today. Like this last week and this week is just kind of our recovery, 2 weeks of recovery. But we have notes from the pain points we went through during this past tax season, okay? Payment authorization form, Yvette, absolutely. In the follow through, Rachel, let's make sure we send them a copy of our payment authorization form. That payment authorization form, we will not touch anybody's work unless we have a payment authorization on file. And we will not file tax returns unless we get paid first, because I'm not chasing money, people. I am not chasing money, okay? So as far as following up on various things, we're gonna go through some of those questions in a second. But check out, we have a Power Up Your Practice content series that we've created that's gonna help you, okay? Help you go through this process. Is more details. Obviously, we only have an hour to go through this, but we also have this the Best of Breed Tech Stack Flywheel, which again, like I said in the beginning, is my favorite visual that I've ever had. Take that thing, use it like a dartboard. Use it like a dartboard. Put it on a dartboard. And when you complete one of those tech stack workflows, put a dart in it, and then move to the next one. I promise you, you will not be sorry. Because I have nothing else to do, I decided writing a book was key. So I wrote a book also. So I taught classes, I coached, I had a full-time tax practice. I'm a mom of 2 beautiful baby girls, and I decided to write a book. I'm all about motivation. You know why? Because there's such a positive world out there that we need to create. Okay, so it's available on Amazon. You can sign up for my Team Brolin, I do positive quotes, my motivation mantras. I'm out there. I want to help you. You know why? Because I'm a mom. I love my family. I want to spend more time with my family. And if I can help one of you today through this webinar to motivate you to get this done, I'm telling you, you will not be sorry. Okay. Let me answer some questions here. Let me answer some questions. So when do the ERO tax preparer sign the 8879? When it comes back to me. Okay. So that's part of the workflow. When you do the DocuSign, you can set that 8879 up as a template. And I couldn't show every little detail about what I'm doing, but that 8879 comes back to me for me to e-sign the 8879s. That again also goes back into their SmartVault folder, which is why I love the integration, because I need to sign that 8879 as well. Okay. Let's see. Bulk notifications. Yes, absolutely. You can definitely send bulk notifications. That's one of the reasons why I love utilizing SmartVault. Clients who are price shoppers, Daniel, great question. That's why we send a quote through Quotient. Okay. I want to make sure that people know what they're paying for. And I also, disclaimer, FYI, we don't mind sending out quotes. It literally takes me 5 seconds to look at it. I go ahead, I send it out. And if they decline, and I'm going to tell you right now, I probably have a 1%, less than 1% declining rate, right? So that's just me. I don't use the payment feature in Lacert. Like I said, I use everything's in QBO for me, all of my accounting, which is awesome. So I don't do the payment feature in Lacert because, like I said, I like to have all of that. This is the greatest tech stack of all time. This is the GOAT of tech stacks. Okay, greatest of all time tech stacks. You've seen it here today. And I definitely want to thank you. I want to thank SmartVault for putting this together. You guys have done an amazing job continuing to improve. Carbon, amen to you. You're integrating with Liscio. You're integrating with SmartVault. You're integrating with QBO. You're integrating with QuickBooks timesheets. All of those things, people, if you are not integrating your tech stack, you've got to make some changes. And I want to thank you guys so much for being here. And Ross, thank you for being here for Lacert. I just think Lacert is the absolute best tax software, period. Okay. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week. Do not let this hour be of waste. Let's get this done, people. Have a great day.